Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady. Today we have 3 great stories, and the first of them. Not only have I never worked in this store, I quit this chain years ago. In the retail justice system, the people are represented by 2 separate but equally important groups. The managers, who investigate customer complaints, and the IDontWorkHereLady civilians who just want to get through their day. These are their stories. With some exaggeration, because just the facts are rather humdrum. Dun dun. Circa both sides of 1987. In high school and college, I worked in a store that was then a major local New York City area supermarket chain that is no more. Anyway, for the first few years, I had the same front-end manager, FM, until she was transferred away to another store in Queens. Wasn't that upset, except her replacement was a B-word who started screwing with my hours. We were union and I was under the old contract where double time was basically Sunday pay. Fast forward 4 to 5 years, college is done and I'm off in the corporate world, my Wally World retail job way back in the rearview mirror. One day I'm doing boyfriend/girlfriend things with my future wife when she told me her mother needed a few things that weren't available at her local supermarket, so we stop in the Wally World store near her mother. Her mother didn't have a car as she didn't need one. It's New York City. So grab a cart, walk past the customer service desk, and someone yells, "Hey, damn-ga-dude!" Turns out a department head I had worked with was now working at that store. While catching up, she tells me FM is there now too, but had stepped away for lunch. With my PTSD of my Wally World years behind me, I told her to page me if FM comes back in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Now, the stores in this chain were mostly laid out in the same way, so I could take a very educated guess as to what aisles to find whatever was on the list. Several minutes later, I'm paged by FM to come to the courtesy desk. The voice. Amazing what can trigger PTSD, though I didn't realize it at the moment. So I go to the desk, say hello, introduce my future wife to the manager who contributed to my PTSD, though in fairness it was mostly the customers. After a minute or two, we say goodbye, walk away, and continue shopping. Future wife gives me the next item on the list, and I respond, that's probably near item X, which I'd seen earlier in aisle number whatever. The sea was angry that day, my friends, like an old man trying to send back soup at a deli. I got about 50 feet out, and suddenly, the great beast appeared before me. I tell you, she was 10 stories high if she was a foot. Karen. It started out nicely enough. Karen asked me what aisle item B was in. I had no clue, but after a quick scan at the overhead signs, I told her it was probably near aisle whatever number. She asked why I wasn't sure. I told her I didn't work there. She said, "But I saw you talking to the managers at the desk and helping this woman," pointing at my girlfriend. I explained that I worked at a different store in the chain with them years before, and while I didn't know where things were specifically, I still remembered how things were generally laid out. Now, before I continue, at the time my wife was in her mid-20s, and it was summer, so she was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, nothing provocative. My wife was a very modest person in public, but I guess to an older woman, especially now that our son is in college, I myself think that the co-eds I see at my son's university, who dressed in a similar manner as my wife did during the warmer months, dressed the same, so I could see it as provocative. So looking at my future wife, she replied, "I can see why you'd rather help her than me." "Well, she's out of your league, so don't waste your time unless the fat F is paying for everything." Wink, wink. She said a few other things about my future wife that were equally insulting. Now, I was always the first to admit that I got a hit out of my league when I met my wife. We'd met in a class and had bonded over trashing our retail jobs and how it sucked to lose our fathers to heart attacks while we were in college. Our nerd personalities were similar enough, and we both wanted the same things out of life, so we started dating. We'd been together for a while at this time, long enough that I was starting to think about buying a ring, which I did a few months later. Now back to our story. My wife was about to say something, but I gave her a look that said, "Please, let me." All I ever wanted to tell a customer in that chain came out. Well, not really, but I want to remember it that way. I'm a New Yorker, and especially in those days, we were known to express our opinions when upset. Having been raised by 2 parents who grew up in Brooklyn in the 40s and 50s, I was pretty good at cursing someone out without actually cursing someone out. PTSD time. Before I go further, I was never diagnosed except by my wife, who wondered why I still had nightmares about that job 20 years later. All the crap I'd taken over the years came bubbling up, and boy, did it feel good to get it out of my system. The details are blurry, But after ripping the lady a new one for implying my girlfriend was a harlot and questioning her ethical background as to why she would jump to such a conclusion, implying that she was projecting over putting out to get favors when she was younger, I then asked her how she was able to function in life without listening to what someone who was actually trying to help her was telling her. "Oh, and by the way, I don't work here, lady," or something similar. She looked at me with disgust and headed, as I was about to discover, to the front desk. We were done with her mother's shopping and headed to the registers. After hearing some yelling and figuring out what was going on, we of course walked by the courtesy desk, only to hear the lady complaining about the rude employee who cursed and laughed at her as he would rather help out his slut girlfriend. That's when the lady noticed me and screamed, "That's him!" My former FM told her, "He doesn't work here, lady." He did work with me at Warzone 51, but that was years ago, and up until today, I haven't seen him since. He and I were just catching up when you saw us talking. I guess Lady Karen brought that up when trying to describe me. That didn't satisfy her, and she demanded to see the store manager. This is where I threw the FM a bone. I told her my girlfriend and I would be happy to give our versions to the store manager, including how the lady had harassed and insulted us. The other former co-worker, who the lady didn't see me talking to earlier, said she saw, probably not, but we were friends back in the day, and she knew I wasn't the type to be overly rude, the lady harassing us, and was about to call security to escort the lady out. Probably also a misstatement before the lady left us. She then asked my way out of my league girlfriend if she wanted her to call the police for the injuries she received after the verbal assault. Anticlimactic finish. The lady stormed out, and I gave my former manager my current phone number if the lady caused any further trouble, so I could explain that former manager had done nothing wrong. I never got a call. Don't know what happened after, but damn did it feel good to be a retail gangster for a few minutes. You just watched me on stage. I'm not the bartender, remember? I'm a full-time touring singer/songwriter, and this happens often, and usually it resolves itself very quickly when I say, "I'm not the bartender." But this one didn't go that way. I was playing a show at a bar I've played dozens of times. I'm good friends with the staff and even have a weekday residency when I'm not playing my usual out-of-state gigs. The opening band was on and doing great, so people were already in the spirit of a fun night out. We were about 30 minutes from our showtime, and I just wanted to refill my soda water. I was standing at the end of the bar in the doorway of the folding bar top door, talking to one of the bartenders and the cook while in between their fast-paced service. Thankfully, the bar was filling up for the show, and they were getting more and more slammed. There was a problem with the CO2 tank, or whatever makes the soda water come out of the gun, so the manager/owner was in the back handling it, and I was patiently waiting, shooting the bull between the back and forth walking to fill orders. Unfortunately, the line was stacking up because of the non-functioning soda gun. A Karen, about 45 or so, walks up to me and says, "Rum and Coke," without so much as looking at me. It took me a second to answer because I didn't realize she was talking to me. She's digging in her purse and finds her money and then finally looks at me and says, "I need a rum and Coke. The show's about to start and I don't want to be standing here when it does." Delighted she's here to see me, I say, "Oh, thanks for coming. Sorry, I'm not the bartender. They'll get your order right down there," and pointing to the growing order line. She huffs and makes a dramatic gesture of grabbing her purse and huffs on over to get in line. A few minutes pass, the CO2 is fixed, the backed up line gets all the orders, I get my soda, Karen gets her rum and Coke, and I walk on stage. During the show, I can see Karen having a good time at a table with two couples. She's solo, wonder why. And she even rewards me and the band with a few loud woohoo shouts, usually when I'm telling the story to set up the next song. That's nothing I'm not used to, and it's my job to play music, not to teach people manners, so we roll on ahead and have a good time. Standard set's over, we even get a one more song encore while Karen's participating, so we play an old cover and throw the jam around for a while, then call it a night. Last call's still about 45 minutes away, so people linger for a while and I go to the merch table and meet a few fans, new and old. No Karen though. By the time that's done, last call is about 20 minutes away, so I stroll back to my spot at the end of the bar by the bar top door and ask for another soda water. As I'm standing there, who should approach but Karen? I'm about to thank her again for coming to the show and for her enthusiasm while we played, but before I can get it out, she says, "Rum and Coke." Again, without looking at me. Again. I try to be polite to people that paid their hard-earned money to come to my shows, and I was trying to figure out how to politely answer this when the bartender walked over, handed Karen her check, and said quite loudly, "I can't serve you anymore, ma'am. Can I call you a cab?" She was flabbergasted and embarrassed and snorts something about it being BS and looks at me like, "Can you believe him?" The bartender replied, "Don't look at him. You just watched him play guitar for almost 2 hours, then tried to order a drink from him. I think you're done." She pays and stomps over to her table, and we can only see her relay it to all her friends. They look over and see me waving and give me an embarrassed wave back and herd her out the door. Students are not allowed in the park. My boyfriend works from home 3 days a week. Fortunately, our condo is relatively close to a mock Tudor-style park. This allows him to escape the house with his laptop on lunch. The park is built where an old seed house once was and is complete with the old foundation feature, a man-made lake, gazebo, and a little ways off a splash park for the kids. In short, it's a nice place for a walk. It just so happens that this is also located near our local Catholic school. One day he's taking a walk with his headphones in, and he's stopped when a young woman decides to confront him. "You're not allowed here, you know you're loitering." Confused, he asked for clarification and was told that students are not allowed in the park and he needs to leave now. As it turns out, this was a teacher from the school that saw him walking and decided to tell him off. It appears that students were banned from going to the park and gardens. While my boyfriend definitely has a young-looking face, he was dressed in business clothes and has an ongoing scruff. Needless to say, if you took a look at him, you'd know quite quickly that he was not a teenager. Being good-natured, he let her know that he was not a high school student and didn't attend the school in question. Thinking it was done, he went to continue his walk. Her response? "Well, you shouldn't be here anyways." Seeing as he had to head home and get back to work, he decided to cut the walk short and avoid any further confrontation. He's not since been bothered, so I can only assume the teacher in question has decided her policing is better spent elsewhere. Thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I hope you enjoyed today's stories. We'll see you soon.